This 38th part of 5,000 Years of War is going to be intense, let me tell you. One of the two sides of the Peloponnesian Wars, Athens and Sparta, will come out of it with a bloody nose. I'm the Archivist. Let me tell you how the Sicilian expedition started. It is 416 BC now. Sparta in Peloponnese and Athens in Attica have been at each other's throat for quite a few years, and here all the men of the island of Melos in the Cyclades archipelago are killed by the Athenians, for Melos, Lacedaemonian colony, that is to say Spartan colony, was refusing to join its side. 30 Athenian galleys carrying 1,200 hoplites, 300 archers, 20 of them mounted, plus 6 ships of Chios and 2 of Lesbos, carrying 1,500 allied hoplites, have put pressure on the island as soon as the hot days had come, before besieging Melos city itself. A minimal force left on side to guard the siege lines, 2 sorties of the besieged by the end of summer and during the autumn managed to damage part of the siege lines, but it only led to a toughening of the siege. Melos starved, turncoats have in the end facilitated its fall, maybe towards the start of 415 actually. The men slaughtered by the Athenians, the rest of the population is turned into slavery. Still in 416, towards the end of the year, raids and skirmishes occur at the edge of Peloponnese between Corinthians, allies of Sparta, and the Athenians, and between Athenians operating from Pylos, right here, and other Peloponnesians. Pylos is a serious thorn in the side of Lacedaemonia since its taking by the Athenians in 425. And in Sicily, Segesta is at war with Selinonte. Syracuse, great city of the east of the island, supports Selinonte, and Segesta will call none other than the great sea power Athens for help. I wonder if this will have some effect on the ongoing Peloponnesian War. Just wait and see, folks. A little bit later, 600 Athenian hoplites supported by 30 triremes help the Argives, located here, in taking Ornea, recently occupied by the Spartans, in Argolid. The siege only lasts one day, as the Orneans manage to slip by the siege lines during the night, letting their opponents destroy their city. While this time to close this year, Athenians cavalrymen and Macedonian exiles pillage operating from Methone on the coast the lands of King Perdiccas II of Macedon, ally of Lacedaemonia. I was a little bit late, of course, in my slides. 415 BC, that's it. Segesta calls Athens for help against Selinonte and most of all Syracuse. Summer is already well advanced when Athens' armada is gathered. 6,000 men, including 5,000 hoplites, 1,500 Athenians, 500 Argives, and 250 Mantineans among them, and 1,000 light infantry. 120 banished from Megara, 480 archers, including 80 Cretan mercenaries, 700 Rhodian slingers. Oh, and 30 cavalrymen too. Let's not forget about them. All this will be transported and escorted by 136 ships, 100 triremes, among which 40 devoted to transport from Athens, Lesbos and Chios, and also 2 small Rhodian from here, Pentecosteers, plus 130 ships only tasked with the logistics and some accompanying the vast fleet on their own accord, like merchants, for example. As Strategos Nikias from Athens stated, I think we must bring on transports our grain from here, wheat, parched barley, and bakers requisitioned from our mills and paid from a certain proportion to ensure troops provisioning if the state of the sea forbids sailing. Athenian strategos Alcibiades leads the expedition, and after a touch and go at Rhegium, right here, he starts off by taking Catana, slightly north of Syracuse. He then lands troops on the lands of Syracuse, of which here's a map for a probing raid of light infantrymen that's repulsed by the cavalry of the city. Alcibiades is then already recalled to Athens for plotting and sacrilege, and he prefers flaying far away. Nicias on screen replaces him in command in Sicily and takes Hycara with the help of riders of Segesta before failing to take Hybla Geleatis before summer's end. Autumn comes, a turncoat misinforms and lures the Syracusan army far from its city, while the Athenians land troops south of it and establish themselves at the Olympion southwest. They take advantage of terrain movements on one side and artificial obstacles on another, moreover protecting their ships with a boom and cutting a bridge, and erected a small rampart to guard themselves from the Syracusan cavalry. When the Syracusan army arrives back from its wandering, Nicias offers battle even though he's outnumbered. He's put the Mantineans and Argives on his right, his own Athenians in the center, and his other allies on his left. The men are deployed on 8 ranks, half of their number in reserve. The Syracusans have deployed their hoplites 16 rank deep, most of their cavalry, 1,200 men, including 200 of Gela and 20 of Camarina, on their right with archers, including 50 of Camarina. After some exchanges between both side skirmishers, the hoplites engage in close combat under the rain. The Syracusans' left weakens first and retreat starts. The Athenians fail at preventing the defeated to go and hide behind the safety of their city's wall, probably because of the numerous cavalry covering them. 260 killed in action for Syracuse, 50 for Athens. Without siege engines, the victor Nicias goes back to Catana and Naxos, way northward, to spend the winter. And guess what? As the cold days are starting, among other minor deeds, the Syracusans manage to go burn some Athenian barracks at Catana, pillaging the neighborhood of this city. Moreover, the Syracusans work at strengthening their defenses, stakes at possible landing points, wall northwest of the city, going like this. And while this time the Athenians work at finding additional supports, the Etruscans from northern Italy sending 3 Ponticostiers, simple war galleys, to Sicily. Oh, and one Alcibiades gets in touch with the Lacedaemonians to try and convince the Spartans to intervene in Sicily. Wait and see for the outcome of this, and from here on, I'll be using this map for the siege of Syracuse. We'll detail the evolution of the siege lines together as the siege goes on. At this point, there is only an Athenian siege camp here, and the very beginning of a wall by the Syracusans here. So we are now in 414 BC, spring coming after winter. The Athenians do some damage against Megara, small town north of Syracuse, but fail at taking a small fort held by the Syracusans here. After more depredations more south, they score a small victory over a small force of their enemies and receive as reinforcements 250 riders and 30 mounted archers from allies in the island, or some from Athens and only the horses from the island maybe. Just before continuing with Sicily, one event in continental Greece, a failed insurrection in Thespiae tamed by the Thebans. Oh, and there's also a short Lacedaemonian expedition against Argos, but it has to be cancelled because of an earthquake. The Argives reply by pillaging the environs of Thyrea, close to Argos. Now, summer has started. The Athenians in Sicily make a landing slightly north of Syracuse and launch an assault against the Epipolae, which means the plateau, an elevated position northwest of the city. 300 of the 600 hoplites defending the Epipolae are killed, and the Athenians establish a fort nearby, little bit west of the map, preparing the siege for good of Syracuse. Sicels, peoples of Egesta and Naxos, bring 400 additional cavalrymen, and the second, circular fort, bigger than the first, is built southeast of it, even closer to Syracuse. All this doesn't prevent the Syracusan cavalry from making a sortie and beating a small detachment of Athenian hoplites and cavalry. Nicias, the Athenian strategos, has the underground water pipes bringing drinkable water to Syracuse sabotaged and starts the erection of a stone wall to cut the city from the rest of the Sicilian lands, running from the circular fort to the sea southward. And the Syracusans try to counter this by building a wooden palisade with ditches and watchtowers stretching from their city to the sea northward. The skirmishes are regular between both sides. So from then on, we've got two walls, one Athenian and one Syracusan, under construction. And now the Athenians aim at stopping the Syracusans. They are launching the building of the wall to prevent the Athenians from reaching the sea southward. What a mess! They equip 300 hoplites mixed with light infantry known for their speed, but armed like hoplites for the occasion, and launch a daring assault which succeeds, even though the Syracusans manage to inflict some casualties on the attackers. As another counter wall is prepared by the Sicilian city, a second attack, very close to the waters of the great harbor of Syracuse, succeeds as well. There is then an open battle someplace southwest of the city, somehow with the Syracusans facing northward and the Athenians between them and their city facing southward. That will be somewhere here, probably. The Athenians get the upper hand, but their enemies are so desperate to reach the city that they manage to knock over the opposing right wing, even though it's held by 300 elite warriors. This turning of table is such a big deal that instead of actually retreating inside Syracuse, the Syracusans suddenly attack the circular fort of the Athenians. Nicias only saves it by setting fire to wooden engines, pieces, and debris lying close to its walls, this fire barrier effectively blocking the assailants. And this is the very moment the Athenian fleet enters the Gulf of the great harbor of Syracuse, persuading the Syracusans that their only option now is to withdraw inside their city. And just before a major development in this long siege, still during the summer in Greece, the Lacedaemonians raid Argos's territory. 30 Athenian ships respond by pillaging several points of the Peloponnesian coastline. All these back home, the Argives unwind by attacking the lands of the Phleontans. And now, out of the Spartan corner, Strategos Gylippos arrives in Sicily with 3,000 warriors. 700 of them are armed sailors, and on the island 1,000 men of Hymera, including 100 cavalrymen, 1,000 Sicels, and some men of Selilonte and Gela are recruited. A vanguard of Corinthian ships arrive in Syracuse's harbor even before Gylippus' landing, giving hope back to the Syracusans. Gylippus takes the northwesternmost fort held by the Athenians just out of the map, and then works against Nicias' wall reaching northward by building another one perpendicular west to east. From here on, numerous fights occur at various locations, day and night, with diverse fortunes. But with 12 Corinthian ships inside Syracuse's harbor, Nicias knows all too well that the situation is deteriorating for him. Under pressure of enemy ships, he can't spare time to get his galleys on shore to repair them, as wood has to be dried from time to time. Why this time? In continental Greece, as summer draws to an end, the Athenians attempt, with Perdiccas II of Macedon and some Thracians, to take Amphipolis in Chalcidice from Sparta. The initial assault fails and the siege begins with support from a river fleet on the Strymon. The following year, Archelaus I will succeed to Perdiccas II by assassinating the other heirs, and reigning until 399 BC, he'll fortify his kingdom, give it new roads, he'll improve his infantry and cavalry, and sell naval wood to the Athenians during the first years of his reign. He'll also meddle into Thessalian affairs, supporting the Aleuadae of Larissa and tame a revolt in Pydna. Now, summer gone, several flotillas of about a score of ships each do some pillaging or shows of force around Peloponnese, while reinforcements are being prepared to bolster both the Athenians and Spartan sides in Sicily. The Athenians' numbers will rise to 30,000 men there. And it is now 413 BC, the year where all will be decided. Let's first mention the taking of Ferentinum, Aequi's city, by Rome, which finally tames these people, the Aequi. And in Greece, the Peloponnesians resume their old habits by launching at the start of spring an invasion of Attica. Spartan king Agis II has Thessalia, placed 20 kilometers northeast of Athens, fortified on the advice of Alcibiades to apply a stronger pressure on the city, preventing it from accessing valuable resources and sources of income. Even its cavalry won't be able to restore communications, and up to 20,000 of its slaves working in the fields and the silver mines of Laurion, southeast of Athens, and exploited for decades, will simply flee. This might also detach the vast Euboea island from Athens. We are back in Sicily, where the Athenian army is in difficulty. 60 more galleys, plus 5 from Chios, are sent as reinforcements, with Strategos Demosthenes, the victor of Olpae and Sphacteria, with 1,200 hoplites, even a little more as this force reinforces along the way. But the Peloponnesians have also sent more troops, 600 Lacedaemonians, including Spartans and Neodamodes, former Helots armed as hoplites, 300 Boeotian hoplites from here, 500 Corinthians, and 200 Sicilians. Sicyon very close to Corinth. And even before their arrival, Spartan Gylippus launches an assault by land against the Plemmyrian, land south of Syracuse on the other side of the Gulf of the Great Harbor. The position is also assailed by sea via 80 Syracusan galleys meeting 60 Athenian hulls. Actually, each fleet is divided into two parts, and there is combat southwest of Syracuse as well as southeast in open sea. At the Plemmyrian, Gylippus manages to take 3 fortified positions that Nicias had built, but on sea, after initial advantage to the Syracusans, they mess up and lose 10 ships against only 3. But nonetheless, the Athenians have lost the ground and quite some material and supplies stocked in the forts of Plemmyrian. About the same time, a dozen Syracusan galleys intercept an Athenian supply convoy and burn timber that was destined to their enemies near Colonia, off the coast of southern Italy. On the way back, one of the ships is in turn intercepted by the Athenians, 20 ships strong then, near Megara of Sicily, north of Syracuse. Now, in Syracuse's harbor itself, the Athenians, despite the projectiles thrown at them by the Syracusans, managed to destroy the boom installed by the besieged. Divers with saws are used, a well-protected galley with towers covering them. You can see a possible location of that boom here. And that boom is quickly repaired, by the way, avoiding any exploitation of the breach. While this time, in Greece, Atheno-Argive forces, including Demosthenes troops bound for Sicily, make a landing in Laconia, pillaging the surroundings of Sparta and leaving a garrison in a quickly built fort, a daring move to be sure. Part of the force sails back home, but the rest, with Demosthenes, finally sets course to Sicily. While they navigate, 1300 Thracian peltasts, mercenaries, arrived late in Athens to join Demosthenes' fleet, are sent back north, pillaging to Athens' profit on the way. They take the minor Mycalessos in Boeotia with badly maintained fortifications and massacre its inhabitants. The Thebans intervene and disperse the Thracians, killing nigh 300 of them, for only 20 killed in return. Also, a battle is fought near Naupactus, right here in Locris, between 33 Athenian ships stationed there, commanded by Diphilos, and slightly fewer triremes, mostly Corinthians, under Polyontes. This one leans against the coast in crescent formation, both tips supported by on-land infantry, throwing troops then. His ship's prows are moreover reinforced to inflict more damage during frontal rammings. However, battle engaged, most Athenian units stay afloat, and only 3 Corinthian are sunk in return. Each side retires after this draw, another engagement possibly happening later, close by, before the port of Erineos. Back in Sicily, 800 of 2,300 Sicilians of several places coming to help the Peloponnesians defend Syracuse are killed on the way in an apparently triple ambush from Sicels loyal to Athens. The survivors still manage to reach Syracuse, even more men from Gila and Camarina notably arriving as reinforcements and with no hurdles on their path. And then, as news has come that the Athenians' reinforcements will soon arrive from Greece, the Syracusans attempt another battle against Nicias' triremes in the great harbor of the city. They've reinforced the 4 of their ships with shortened but hardened rams, in a manner that reminds the Corinthian ships of the recent engagement of Naupactus, which should work to great effect by ramming frontally against the slim Athenian galleys that are rather made for side rammings, harder to achieve in the confines of the Gulf of the Great Harbor. On land, Gylippus and the Syracusans attack the Athenian entrenchments from the city and the land's southwest. The battles rage concurrently. At sea, after what turns out to be a rather timid confrontation, the 80 Syracusan and 75 Athenian warships separate come the evening on a Syracusan advantage by sinking a measly 2 enemy units. On land, no decision could be made. 2 days later, the fightings resume, and this time, by noon, the balance tips to one side. The Syracusans shorter their midday break, the citizens ordered to bring meals to the sailors directly on the shores of the harbor to do so, and they can therefore assault the Athenians that are quite caught off guard. The Syracusans ram them frontally, and smaller skiffs with javeliners harass them on the flanks. Nicias loses 7 triremes and avoids complete disaster by retreating his other ships behind a boom, probably here, and barges on the western side of the great harbor. A Syracusan galley is even taken when it strands on the boom, imprudently pursuing the Athenians. And it is on this that Demosthenes arrives with his 73 reinforcement ships, 5,000 heavy infantry, and thousands of light infantry. He wastes no time by attacking with siege engines to the Syracusan wall outside the city, but these attacks are repulsed. Then he tries another push, but by night against the enemy positions on the Epipolae plateau, on the northern part of the battlefield. At first, the Syracusans and their allies, both Sicilians and Peloponnesians, are overrun, but then his men advance too fast and in disorder, exposing themselves to counterattack. As Athenian historian Thucydides described it, in a night engagement, and this was the only one that occurred between great armies during the war, how could anyone know anything for certain? Although there was a bright moon, they saw each other only as men do by moonlight. That is to say, they could distinguish the form of the body, but could not tell for certain whether it was a friend or an enemy. Both had great numbers of heavy infantry moving about in a small space. Some of the Athenians were already defeated, while others were coming up yet unconquered for their first attack. A large part also of the rest of their forces either had only just got up or were still ascending, so that they did not know which way to march. Owing to the rout that had taken place, all in front was now in confusion, and the noise made it difficult to distinguish anything. The victorious Syracusans and allies were cheering each other on with loud cries, by night the only possible means of communication, and meanwhile receiving all who came against them, while the Athenians were seeking for one another, taking all in front of them for enemies, even although they might be some of their now flying friends, and by constantly asking for the watchword, which was their only means of recognition, not only caused great confusion among themselves by asking all at once, but also made it known to the enemy, whose own they did not so readily discover, as the Syracusans were victorious and not scattered, and thus less easily mistaken. The result was that if the Athenians fell in with a party of the enemy that was weaker than they, it escaped them through knowing their watchword, while if they themselves failed to answer, they were put to the sword. But what hurt them as much, or indeed more, than anything else, was the singing of the paean, from the perplexity which it caused by being nearly the same on either side. The Argives and Corcyraeans and any other Dorian peoples in the army struck terror into the Athenians whenever they raised their paean, no less than did the enemy. Thus, after being once thrown into disorder, they ended by coming into collision with each other in many parts of the field, friends with friends, and citizens with citizens, and not only terrified one another, but even came to blows, and could only be parted with difficulty. And so it ends on a debacle for the Athenians. They suffer up to 2,000 dead that night, maybe even more, actually. And as if it were not enough, by summer's end, a plague hits the Athenian troops on the island. Maybe it is the malaria, hard to know today. On the opposing side, new reinforcements arrive for the Syracusans, both from Sicily and Peloponnese. Some hoplites of this latter, pushed by unfavorable winds, have even stranded in Libya, where they helped the Hellesperydans from Berenice, close to nowadays Benghazi. There they defeated some besiegers before setting again for Sicily. In September, after a day of skirmishes upon Syracuse initiative, a sortie included, the Athenians losing men including 70 horses, a new battle engages both on land and at sea. 76 Syracusan ships attack 86 Athenians that hastily form up off coast and try to envelop the Syracusans' left wing, which brings them too close to the shore and harbor of the city. Already dominant in the center, now on the left, the Syracusans score a large victory. 18 Athenian ships are lost, the others withdraw to their fragile base. On land, the fighting has this time been at Nicias and Demosthenes' advantage. Last action of the day, a fire ship is launched against the Athenians' mooring triremes, but is stopped before doing any harm. The grand finale is close now. The Syracusans completely closed the great harbor with various types of boats or ships linked by chains, effectively trapping the Athenians in the bay. These assemble their 120 remaining hulls and try to break through that blockade, preparing grappling hooks to grab and trap against them any Syracusan galley coming to ram them, allowing for boarding operations. But the stratagem has been learned by the Syracusans via turncloaks, and they put some kind of leather sheets on part of their ships, preventing the hooks from hooking, I guess. And so the Athenian galleys approaching the barrage are thrown back against the shore by the 75 Syracusan or allied ships after some ferocious fightings. Half of the Athenian fleet is lost, a third of the allied one. But it doesn't even matter anymore, as Nicias and Demosthenes, seeing that all hope is lost, decide to burn their remaining ships and to try and flee by land with their at most 40,000 men, servants, and rowers included. This flight through Sicilian lands starts 3 days after this last naval battle and lasts for a week. It is punctuated by skirmishes and relentless harassing from the Syracusans and the Peloponnesians from Gylippus the Spartan. And after a last fight, rather a massacre on the river Asinaros, south of Syracuse, it ends on the surrendering of Demosthenes and Nicias, and there are only 10,000 survivors. Both Athenian leaders are put to death, their men turned into slavery or imprisoned, many to die there in the Latome quarries, not far from Syracuse. This Sicilian expedition is a complete disaster for Athens, militarily and financially. Dozens of thousands of men have been lost, along with 200 warships, and of course many of its allies will now think about defecting to the other side. As Sparta is approached by Persian satraps, their Achaemenid king seeing the weakening of Athens as an opportunity to regain influence and extort tribute from Greek cities of eastern Mediterranean. Persian coin will allow Sparta to assemble a great fleet, 100 units being launched in the upcoming year, including 25 from Lacedaemon itself and 25 from its Boeotian allies. In exchange, Sparta will indeed recognize the Persian dominion over Ionia. Next week, we'll see, among other things, the end of these long Peloponnesian Wars. Thanks for your fidelity and support to the channel by leaving a like and a comment. See you all next week, my friends.